Matt, we're trying to figure out why Vegas has this at 8.5. And I know you don't usually talk to sort of the gambling side of it, but it doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense. But my working theory is it's not really about football, that it's about a team traveling west for a Sunday night game, X number of time zones, and whatever that data shows. Does this make sense to you?
The travel time does. That does impact you as a football player, there's no question. There's been times, especially when we played out east in Washington, where we would leave 2 days early, right? Just to get accustomed to the time change and have a walkthrough out there to get 2 good nights of sleep in the hotel before playing a football game. So when you leave on a Saturday, it's a long flight, depends on what time you get in. A lot of times it can be rushed. You get there, you have dinner real quick, then you have your team meeting. All of a sudden, you're getting to bed and you're waking up. The time is off. So there's things that do factor into it. But I also think it's because of how Vegas views the quarterback situation this week, right? You have Justin Herbert is considered a top 5 player at the position versus, a young player, rookie making his second start. So I could see why the spread would be at that point because of that.
The Chargers have been able to get to the quarterback and they've taken the ball away. How then is their defense still bad?
They're giving up too many explosive plays, and we've talked about that all season. They're giving up too many explosive plays. Right now, they're allowing, league worst. I think it's 310 yards passing per game. So when you get to that type of passing numbers and not taking away explosive plays, then you're allowing teams, despite your ability to put pressure on the quarterback, despite your ability to take the football away, to stay in football games and to move the ball down the field when you don't have to put together 8-10 play drives. You can take a shot down the field, complete it. And that's where they're at right now. And look, Brandon Staley's a really good coach. We look at what he does from a scheme perspective and how that defense plays. But right now, they're giving up too many explosive plays despite the impact production they have in that side of the football.
I also want to ask you just about the overall defensive game that was called yesterday. On Sunday. I feel like we last week talked about how there were some positive changes to that. What were your impressions of what you saw? And we can even go back the last couple of weeks, I think, to build on what we've seen.
Yeah, the pressure rate has gone up over the last 3 weeks right now with the Bears defense. And that's not a blitz rate, it's a pressure rate. How many times they're getting to the quarterback? What that means is hitting the quarterback, creating a disruptive throw, tipping a pass, batting a ball down in the secondary. That disruption rate is up right now for the Bears. You saw what Jalen Johnson did last week. I thought it was an excellent football game for him. I thought he's very aggressive in coverage, wanted to challenge wide receivers consistently, went up against Devontae Adams. And look, you have to look at the level of competition. That has to be discussed here. You weren't playing Patrick Mahomes last week or the last couple of weeks. We all understand that. But they are playing better on defense. They're still, playing their core coverages, Tampa 2, cover 3, but they are mixing in a little bit more man. The blitz rate is starting to climb a little bit. They are being more aggressive right now because they have to be. And that's going to be interesting how they play against Justin Herbert this week. Because the last 4 games, I think Herbert's had a turnover in each of those games. He had 2 last week. He's not throwing the ball very accurately right now. Losing Mike Williams has impacted this LA offense because he was their vertical stretch option. So what they're doing and replacing him is rookie Quentin Johnston from TCU, who at this point is still about the physical profile, the physical tools, as he hasn't developed, the nuance needed at the wide receiver position in terms of route running and uncovering and making yourself available for a quarterback. He will get there, but he's still a very young player, so they are missing an element to that offense as well.
What did you see on tape from Tyson Bagent?
I thought this is how I would say it, Lawrence. I thought he was very efficient with the football. I thought he took the throws that were available. I thought his mechanics were very clean in terms of his footwork, getting the ball out on time, seeing it, delivering the football. At times, I thought he flushed the pocket to his throwing hand a little bit too quickly, and that's understandable, making your first pro start. There was times where I thought, okay, you can step up, you can reset your throwing window, you can stay inside the pocket. But he did a lot of good things that were asked of him to do. One of the best plays were when he had a front side read with DJ Moore and Darnell Mooney, wasn't there, flipped the hips, reset his throwing window, find the backside in breaker and complete the pass. And the best thing about that game for the young quarterback was the Bears absolutely controlled tempo, right? The entire football game, they controlled the outcome of that football game from the beginning. Mm-hmm. They're running the ball downhill, making plays, taking the ball away on defense, not allowing explosive plays, not allowing Las Vegas get to the red zone or into the end zone. And that's how you play with a young quarterback. And look, I'm sure the Bears want that again this week. That's not realistic. There's going to be times where he's going to be asked to make a play on 3rd and 7 to 10, or he's going to have to get outside of structure and use his mobility, keep his eye level up, and make a play. So it's great to say, look what he did last week, because it did work. That's not going to happen every week. There's going to be situations in this football game. Maybe the Bears are down 10 points in the second half, where they can't just say, we're going to run downhill, we're going to throw the ball underneath, we're going to use play action. And that's kind of the blueprint for a young quarterback. But when that blueprint can't be utilized, then we're going to see a lot more. But in terms of what he did, I thought it was a very good start for him. And what a story for him. You're an undrafted free agent. Undrafted. And you get to start a National Football League game. And you win the game. Yeah, you had the help of the running game and the defense. But if he keeps doing this and playing well, I'm not saying playing at a level of Patrick Mahomes by any means. If you keep doing this as a young player, one thing you do is you buy more years in the league. You keep yourself available in the league.
So be a defensive coordinator now. And we know the Chargers' pass defense is probably the worst in the league between the Broncos and the Chargers as far as the passer rating against, the yards that they give up, the yards per pass. It's bottom of the barrel. You got a guy who averaged 2.1 air yards per throw, the lowest that's been measured in however long they've been measuring it. What do you do? And because he's going to want to come out and throw some of those deeper window shots. He doesn't have the greatest arm. What's your strategy?
Yeah, he's a timing and rhythm thrower. I would challenge. I'd play man coverage right from the start. I play aggressive man coverage, press man coverage, force him to put the ball in the tighter windows with pressure on top of that. And in addition to that, I would consistently never line up in the same look back-to-back times. So if you're going to be quarters one time, you're in single high the next time. You're going to be showing pressure next time. They're going to bluff pressure and drop people out. I want to consistently change the picture for him and make it hard on him. But yeah, I agree to your point, Dan. There's going to be times where he's going to have to be much more aggressive in a thrower in this football game. You're going to have to create some explosive plays. I don't think they had one last week. I think I'm right on that in terms of an explosive play reception or explosive play run. So they outside the screen, but they're going to have to be more aggressive throwing the football in this game. And I'm going to challenge them to do it. By doing that, I'm saying I'm going to challenge the wide receivers consistently. I'm not going to sit back and cover two. No way. I'm going after them because I want to see if the young quarterback can read it out post-snap and make a high-level throw down the field.
I sometimes don't think that we as media members talk enough about the importance of what happens when the opposing NFL teams get a whole book on a new offense after a year. I feel the same way even after a single game. How much more powerful is it for an opposing defense after they've seen a single game of work out of a backup quarterback like this to have that information and change the fortune of that player so immediately the next week?
Sure, it does matter. Yeah, you'd like to have 4 games of tape, honestly, but you have 1. So there will be some adjustments made in how the Chargers prepare and play against the young quarterback, comparable to what Vegas did last week, right? Things are going to change for him in terms of what he's going to see pre and post snap, what they're going to do based on down and distance, how they're going to play him in 2 minute, how they're going to play him in the red zone. Everything's going to change. Now it's on the Bears to counter that as well. What are you going to add, right? What did you see last week that you can now add to the mix? Is there going to be more second and third level throws? Can we have some scheme verticals down the field when you're using max protection? Even though he doesn't have the arm talent of Justin Fields, you can throw a deep over route. You can throw a deep corner route. Those are explosive play opportunities in that league. So what are the Bears going to do to counter, and how can they be more aggressive and facilitate more production when they want to be aggressive? Because, again, throwing the ball to the flat, throwing slant routes is great, but it's not going to win you enough football games in this league.
I had this discussion with Tim Jenkins, our quarterback, when he was on talking about how he would defend. It's really interesting to hear your perspective and sort of overlay that with his. He said he would play single high, and I said that my first thought was zone pressures that play these short to medium zones and create some decision-making in some smaller windows. You don't have to turn your back, and then send people he doesn't expect. When you're walking up a safety from the box, or mugging the A gap, things that you can do to force him to make a decision, make him change, make him can, kill, and then you're able to back off into something else. Make him show his hand first.
Right, and you can do that out of single high looks, right? You can play 3 deep, 300 zone coverage while bringing pressure. And I think the other part of that, Dan, is you're seeing a lot in the NFL right now. I just watched this morning with Baltimore, is these simulated pressures. I think they're becoming very popular very quickly right now in the NFL. And a simulated pressure is when you're rushing 4, you just don't know where the 4th guy is coming from, right? You just don't know. It could be a linebacker, it can be a corner, it can be a safety.
That goes back though. That's come back into vogue. That was the old Rob Ryan stuff.
Sure,
Wasn't that when he wouldn't even show whose hand was on the ground until the last second?
Amoeba defense.
And ultimately it was 4, but you had to figure out, you had to guess who the 4 were going to be.
Right. When you do that, what do you get? You get 7 in coverage. Right now, you can play man behind it. Now you can play quarters behind it. Now you can play a matchup zone behind. There's so many different things you can do because you have the numbers advantage right now, and you're also creating pressure, because what you're trying to do with the simulated pressure is attack away from the protection slide. So if you can get an overload look and force that offensive line to do a 4-man slide or a 3-man slide to that side of the formation, now you get the man matchups in the backside. And if you can occupy those backside defenders, again, based on where you're lined up, and then you bring the slot corner, then you bring the free safety, then you bring the boundary corner. Well, guess what? They're not accounted for. Right? They're not accounted for in protection because that's already been decided post-snap and in the initial steps of the offensive line. So that's how people are getting to the quarterback. I think the Ravens do an excellent job of it. And all these coaches watch tape. That's all they do. They watch everyone else's. They watch the teams that are winning. And that's one thing I would throw at a young quarterback, because, again, now you're forcing him to identify where the free rusher is coming from. And also, by the way, they're playing sound coverage behind it. And that happens very quickly, where you have to identify it, read it out, and then ultimately get the ball to an open wide receiver.
Lawrence and I last week were talking about what this is for Tyson Bagent. This is an audition for him in a way.
Mm-hmm.
I know you just talked about the importance of 4 games, but after seeing what you've seen and evaluating quarterbacks at the level that you have, do you think that he's proving himself to at least be a capable NFL, not just backup, but a talent at quarterback in the league who can have some experience in the future?
It's a great question. I think you do need to see much more here. One game's not going to tell you enough, but in terms of his skill set and what he can do and his mobility, I think he could have the ceiling to be, a low-level starter in the league, a lower tier number 1. There's no question about that. He can do that probably. Again, you need to see more. But you can see more upside if the next couple, let's say he plays 2 more games before Fields comes back, because when Fields comes back, he's a starter. I think everyone understands that. I posted a clip on Twitter the other day of his boot mechanics, and ultimately the mentions turned into this huge argument if he was a Bears starter. I don't think that at all. I think he's playing the quarterback position right now until your starter, Justin Fields, is healthy, and he will be back as your number 1. But I think if he gets 2 more games of tape, to answer your question, now things start to change in terms of his career path and the trajectory of his career path and what he can be counted on moving into the future, not only the rest of this season, but into next year, depending on who the Bears have in the starting quarterback position, is that he is more than capable of being a number 2, that he can help us, he can win for us.
The injuries are starting to pile up on Darnell, Wright. He's got a shoulder and a toe injury.
Mm-hmm.
Would it be fair to say that he has been the Bears' best offensive lineman this season? And what does it look like if he's not out there to go up against either Bosa or Mack?
I think he has been the Bears' best offensive lineman. I think he has the most upside. I think he has the best traits of anyone on that offensive line. That's why he was drafted in the top 15. That's why he played in the SEC conference against quality competition and had very good tape. And you're seeing a natural progression with him as well. He has the movement traits to win on the edge. He can get in his pass set. He can set his anchor. He can mirror and match speed off the edge. I think he's a very good player. And if you don't have him, you're in trouble.